Welcome to the AI-powered reader, your shortcut to unlocking the world's best books. Get ready to absorb key insights, understand core concepts, and expand your knowledge all in a fraction of the time. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, and welcome! Today, we're diving deep into Lighter by young Pueblo. This is a book that has touched millions, and for good reason. It's not just a bunch of ideas, it's a real, practical roadmap for healing. And that's because it's so personal. It was written by someone who had to pull himself out of a huge crisis to find this path. So, let's get into it. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the author's own story, the reckoning that really gave this book its heart. Then we'll map out the book structure for healing. After that, we'll pull out the three biggest takeaways, the things you can really use in your own life. And finally, we'll zoom out and take a balanced look at the book's strengths and some important things to keep in mind. Okay, so to really get the power of Lighter, you have to know where it came from. This isn't some academic theory, It's more like a survivor's guide, one that was forged in a moment of total crisis. This line, it's right from the first page of the book. We're talking 2011, and the author, Diego Perez, he hit absolute rock bottom. After years of using drugs to numb his emotional pain, his body basically said no more. He describes it as this terrifying wake-up call, a moment that forced him to see just how far he'd drifted from himself. And that moment on the floor, well, it wasn't some magic fix. As you can see from this timeline, it was really just the beginning of a slow, very intentional, decade-long journey. A year later, a friend recommends Vipassana meditation. By 2015, this isn't just a side thing, it's a full-time, daily commitment. And all of that deep work eventually led to him publishing Lighter in 2022, where he basically just mapped out the exact path that saved his own life. And this is all connected to his pen name, Young Pueblo, which means young people. He sees all of us, humanity as a whole, as a collective that's still growing up, still learning. The book is meant to be a bridge. His whole idea is that if you want to change the world, you have to start with yourself. When we heal our own inner chaos, our actions out in the world become more compassionate. We literally start building a better world from the inside out. So that's the why behind the book. Now let's get into the how, because Lighter isn't just a collection of nice quotes. It's a really carefully designed blueprint for healing. The book unfolds in 4 clear stages, basically creating a path for you to follow. It all kicks off with the foundation, self-love. From there, it moves into the tough part, the actual healing, facing your past. That then teaches you the skill of letting go of all that baggage. And it all leads to emotional maturity, which is about making these lessons a real, natural part of who you are. It's a super logical path from building the base to mastering the skill. And his definition of healing is so important. It's not about trying to forget your past. It's about changing your relationship to it. He calls it an intentional process of unloading old programming, those automatic reactions that are wired into you from past pain. The goal isn't to not remember, it's to be able to remember without that intense emotional gut punch that used to come with it. All right, let's get to the heart of it all. We've boiled down the book's entire philosophy into 3 main pillars. If you take away anything from our explainer today, make it these 3 things. Okay, so the first pillar just completely flips the script on what we think of as self-love. Forget the bubble baths and treating yourself. Young Pueblo says self-love is an action. It's this deep commitment to doing the hard work of figuring yourself out and healing. It's not always going to feel good, but he argues it's the absolute, non-negotiable first step for any real change. And this active self-love is built on 3 practices. First, radical honesty. That means being brave enough to admit what you're really feeling, no filter. Second is positive habit building. This is about consciously creating new patterns. So instead of scrolling on your phone when you feel anxious, maybe you choose to meditate for 5 minutes. It's tough at first, but it builds new pathways in your brain. And finally, unconditional self-acceptance. Looking at your flaws, your messy parts, not with judgment, but with the kindness you'd give a good friend. The second pillar gives us this really useful distinction. The book draws a clear line between what he calls human habit and human nature. Our human habit is that knee-jerk survival mode part of us. It's ruled by fear, by cravings, by all those old patterns. A lot of us think that's just who we are. But he says no, our true human nature is what's underneath all of that. It's a core of love and clarity. So the whole point of healing is to peel back the layers of habit to get back to who we really are. And that brings us right to the third pillar, the art of letting go. I mean, we hear that phrase all the time, right? But the book makes us get really specific by asking a simple but powerful question. What are we actually holding on to? So the book breaks it down into 4 main types of mental baggage. First, our resistance to change, that constant struggle against the fact that life is always in motion. Then there's the ego's need for control, trying to make everyone and everything act the way we think they should. Third, attachments. This is when we tie our happiness to one specific thing, like getting a certain job. It's a recipe for disappointment. And finally, just the weight of the past itself, letting old wounds and reactions control our present. So in this context, letting go is about consciously loosening our grip on all 4 of these things. Okay, so we've walked through the author's story, the book's structure, and its core takeaways. For our last section, let's step back and look at this with a critical eye. What makes this book so effective, and what are some important things to consider? You can't deny this book has some major strengths. First, it's just so authentic. Because it comes from his own raw, vulnerable journey, the advice never feels like he's preaching from on high. Second, it gives you a truly actionable framework. It's not just nice ideas. Concepts like the 3 pillars give you a real mental model you can use every single day. And finally, it does a beautiful job connecting personal growth to global change. It makes your inner work feel like you're actually contributing to a better world, which is, super motivating. Now, for that balanced view, we have to talk about some key considerations. And to be fair, the author is the first one to point these out. He makes it crystal clear that healing is not a quick fix. It's a long-term commitment. He also stresses that his path is not the only path. And really importantly, he acknowledges that real-world systemic barriers, like not having enough time or money or a safe space to do this work, are huge obstacles for a lot of people. It's not just a matter of willpower. And this quote right here just hammers home that point about commitment. This book is not selling you some fantasy of a quick and easy transformation. It's a very honest invitation to a difficult, lifelong practice. It's a great reminder that real, lasting change takes a kind of dedication that, as he says, does not take days off. And that honesty is a huge strength, but it also really highlights the challenge of putting this into practice in our busy, demanding lives. And that brings us to the final, thought-provoking question that the book really leaves you with. Young Pueblo's core message is that your first gut reaction to anything, that's just your past showing up. It's old programming. The real work, the real you, shows up in that tiny space between the impulse and what you choose to do next. So we'll leave you with the central challenge of lighter. What intentional response are you going to choose to create your present moment?
That's all for this episode of the AI-powered Reader. We hope today's summaries sparked new ideas and brought you valuable insights. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and consider leaving a review. It really helps others discover the show. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reading, or rather listening.